Welcome back to the island. Week 14 is upon us, and for a lot of teams, we are fighting for our playoff lives. And for some of us, we've been sitting pretty all year and have a top seed locked up. It's your guy, Bambo, here, and I'll be walking you through the news, do's, and don'ts for week 14. Before we start, special shout out to all of our leagues, listeners, and followers: Pizza League, Fun League, Champions League, just to name a few. Thanks for enabling my fantasy addiction for the past 4 months. You guys are the real MVP. Let's go. We're going into week 14 right now. And let me just first start it off with now's not the time to get cute. Now's not the time to play with your lineup. Now is not the time to second guess your studs. I'm going to go over some names right now. Basically, these are your lineup locks. These are players that stay in your lineup no matter what. For some of these quarterbacks, if you have more than one top 10 quarterback, we call that a rich man's problem. Flip a coin. For QBs, Hurts, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Tua, Lamar, Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, and CJ Stroud, never leave your lineup. For running backs, CMC, Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler, even though he's been playing kind of uninspired, Dak Moss, Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, Bijan Robinson, and Raheem Mostert. Don't leave your lineups. For wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Evans, Puka, Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, never leave your lineup. And of course, at the tight end position, a little healthier this year than normal, Kelsey, Sam Laporta, Hawkinson, Kittle, Kincaid, Ingram, and Taysom Hill are all must-start tight ends. Never leave your lineup. We're going to get into the Week 14 key injuries. Still hurting, Kenneth Walker with an oblique. This is an injury that's been described as complicated. If Zach Charbonnet, who also has knee swelling, can't go, it's going to be a bad situation for Seattle, and the last man standing would be DJ Dallas. If Zach Charbonnet can go, please be aware. It's a bad matchup against San Francisco. You want to avoid that at all costs. In Green Bay, Aaron Jones with a knee sprain. The Packers play Monday night in week 14, so maybe he gets an extra day's rest, but don't bank on him. He had zero practice since his injury, and A.J. Dillon can be used in a desperate pinch versus the Giants, but very low floor. Justin Jefferson with a hamstring should be a good to go for the Raiders. He was mentioned earlier, start him no matter what. Christian Watson looks like he's going to miss some time with a hamstring injury for the Green Bay Packers. Make sure to roster Dontavian Wicks, who will occupy that speedy big wide receiver role for Green Bay, who is tearing it up as of late. Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence looking like they're going to miss at least this week. Fade all Jags except for Evan Ingram and Etienne. CJ Beathard is a steep drop off in order for you to trust any wideouts in Jacksonville. That's real iffy. Ingram and Etienne are the only Jacksonville players you can start with confidence. In New Orleans, Derek Carr is out with another concussion and shoulder injury, which means Jameis Winston can 100% be started versus Carolina. All Saints pass catchers will get a boost, and Chris Olave is a top-end wide receiver too, flirting with wide receiver 1 status. In Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett will miss some time with a bad ankle injury. All Steelers to the bench because Trubisky isn't that guy. Can't put it any other way. For New England, Ramondre Stevenson will miss a few weeks with a high ankle sprain. He is the only Patriot to roster. Pick up Zeke if you want to be able to take a running back off the wire to block opponents, but don't start him. That's too risky. In Houston, Tank Dell is done for the year. Really puts a cap on his amazing rookie year. Hopefully he comes back next year ready to go. But in his place, Nico Collins and Noah Brown all get boosts. So does Dalton Schultz. And like we said earlier, Nico Collins is a wide receiver 1 going forward. Don't take him out of your lineup. And in Cleveland, Amari Cooper is in concussion protocol, so pay attention to how he progresses through the week. Elijah Moore and David Njoku will benefit from Amari Cooper being in concussion protocol. Pair that with Joe Flacco leading the offense. That means Elijah Moore becomes a startable flex with potential for blow-up spots, and Njoku becomes a top 12 tight end. Now for our week 14 do's. Do start Jordan Addison versus the Raiders. Raiders will try to take away Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. Minnesota should try to take advantage of that. He can have the biggest game out of all 3 fantasy options for the Vikings. Do start Brandon Ayuk versus the Seahawks. Look, the Niners are rolling, and it seems like it's just his turn to go off. Everybody on this Niners team, when they're rolling, seems to have their big fantasy game, and it looks like it's coming back around for Brandon Ayuk. He is a wide receiver 1 in this offense and the number 1 deep target for Brock Purdy. No-brainer. Do start Jerome Ford versus the Jags. Browns need to get back to their run, especially now that they can get the play action done with Joe Flacco. Plus, with the Browns missing Cooper, they're going to have to turn to other weapon. They need to turn to that running game, which was very successful earlier in the year. Do start Jahmyr Gibbs and Justin Fields in this Lions versus Bears game. I'm not going to back that up with any types of analytics or any types of stats. These guys are just due for big fantasy games. Call it a hunch. It's happening this week. In week 14, do start Isaiah Pacheco and start him going forward. He might be the one sure thing in this KC offense. And by the way, here on the island, we told you this would happen like almost 2 years ago. Now for our week 14 don'ts. Don't get cute and start guys in bad offenses with bad QB situation. Now isn't the time to start any Patriots receivers, any Steelers receivers, Calvin Ridley, Adam Thielen, Garrett Wilson. If you have no other options, you're going to have to roll with it. But these guys could be the reason why you lose your week. And with Garrett Wilson, the Jets, as of the time recording this, they're going back to Zach Wilson. I don't know how in he is going to be. I don't know how dedicated he is to this team after being treated like a side piece. Stay away from the Jets offensively. That's including Brees Hall. Don't start any running backs versus San Francisco. We mentioned it earlier. They just make teams abandon the run too quickly. They just deflated DeAndre Swift with a huge hit and pretty much took the running game away from the Eagles in week 13. Niners are the real deal. They have a stout run defense, plus they could just game script you out of your run. Don't start running backs against San Francisco. Don't forget in week 14, there are 2 Monday night games. Dolphins at Titans, Packers at Giants. Try to put your Monday night players into flex positions just in case something happens. Old school rule, stick with it. Another week 14, don't submit waiver claims if your team is mathematically out of it. This is more of the act of a gentleman, and assuming you play in leagues where just menaces aren't allowed, there are exceptions like worst record punishments, side bets, multi-season formats, but in a traditional PPR redraft league, come on. I know you're playing for pride, but don't be an ass. Don't take a player off the waiver wire that somebody that's in the playoffs could possibly use. It just sets a bad tone. Those are our week 14 news, do's, and don'ts. And hopefully we are going to set you up to make that playoff push and advance your team, hopefully on the way to a championship. Special shout outs to my man Al, who at the beginning of the year was having some issues with his draft and was giving me a call. I told him to draft Puka and Sam Laporta with his last 2 offensive players picks. That guy's sitting on a number 1 seed in his league. Good job, Al. And shout out to anybody who has reached out to anyone on the island for advice, and we took care of you. We like to make sure that we are backing it up and walking it the way that we talk it. And most important, we are setting your team up for success. Best of luck in week 14 to all of you and all of your teams. On behalf of Sweet Tea and RW King, I'm your boy Bambo. See you next time. We're out.